Welcome to the second part of chapter review questions on quadratics. This is an exam type question on quadratics, substituting and equating quadratics. We're given two equations, f of x and g of x, and we're said that f of 3 equals g of 3. Now, if we want to write f of 3, we're going to write this equation, but instead of x, we're going to replace all the x with 3. So f of 3 can be written as 3 square instead of x square plus 3 times 3 minus 5, which equals 13. And then uh, we can write g of 3, which is 4 times 3 plus k. So instead of x, we're substituting that with 3. 4 times 3 is 12, so this turns out to be 12 plus k. Now that we have found f of 3 and g of 3, we can use this, which says f of 3 equals g of 3. So if f of 3 equals g of 3, that means these answers, 12, 13, must equal to 12 plus k. So 13 equals 12 plus k. Now to find k, we can put 12 on the other side of the equation. So 13 minus 12 equals k, and that's 1. So 1 equals k, which means k equals 1. Part B of this question asks us to find the values of x for which f of x equals to g of x. So we know f of x equals x squared plus 3x minus 5. So we can write that x squared plus 3x minus 5 equals to g of x. Now g of x is 4x plus k, but we have found the value of k here, which is 1. So we can write that as 4x plus 1. Now we're asked to find the values of x, which means solving this equation. To solve this equation, we need to bring this equation in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So x squared plus 3x, we're going to bring this 4x to the other side of the equation. So that's minus 4x. We have minus 5, and this plus 1 can be brought to the other side as minus 1. That equals 0. So x squared, 3x minus 4x is minus x, and minus 5 minus 1 is minus 6. So that's our new equation. And we can solve this using the product and sum rule. The product is minus 6 and the sum is minus 1. So the two numbers that we need are 2 and minus 3, because 2 times minus 3 is minus 6 and 2 minus 3 is minus 1. So we have x plus 2 and x minus 3 equals 0. From that we get x equals minus 2 and x equals 3. So we have our two answers, which is x equals minus 2 or x equals 3. Solving these quadratics are a bit different because they want answers in three significant figures. This means that we are not supposed to use the product and sum rule, but the quadratic formula. And we're going to work with quadratic formula in a bit. But before we work with the quadratic formula, we must change this equation in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So let's take all of these to the other side of the equation. So we'll take this part to the right hand side of the equation. So there will be 0 on the left hand side, and here we'll have 7 minus 10 plus x squared. And the reason for bringing that on the right side is because we wanted to make this positive so that it gets a bit easier. So 7 minus 10 is minus 3. So we have minus 3 plus x squared. We can rearrange and write the 0 on the other side of the equation. So we can write this equation as x squared plus x minus 3 equals 0. Now, this is the quadratic formula, which we'll be using instead of the product and sum rule because we're asked to give the answer correct to three significant figures. Now, we need the three letters. We need A, B, and C, values of A, B, and C, because we need to put that in this equation to get the answer. Now, This equation is in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c. So that should tell us where those numbers are. So a is the number that's in front of x squared. Now we can see there's no number here, which means there is a 1. So the value of a is 1. Similarly, for x, there is no number in front of x either. So there is also a 1 there. So the value of b is also 1. And the value of c is minus 3 because the last number is c. So now we have found our values of a, b, and c. We can substitute those numbers in the equation. So x equals minus b, so that's minus 1, plus or minus square root of b squared, which is 1 square, minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is minus 3, divided by 2 times a, which is 1. Let's simplify this. So x equals minus a plus or minus square root of 1 square is just 1. Minus 4 times 1 times negative 3 is plus 12. So 1 plus 12 divided by 2 times 1, which is just 2. So x equals minus 1 plus or minus square root of 13 divided by 2. So from there we get two answers. One of them is minus 1 plus square root of 13 over 2, and the other one, or x equals minus 1 minus square root of 13. So what we did just now is break off that plus or minus symbol into two answers. One of them is minus 1 plus square root of 13, the other one is minus 1 minus square root of 13. Now if I put those things in calculator, we get that this equals 1.30, and the other answer is minus 2.30, and those are the answers for this question. A similar question here on the quadratic formula, but before we do that, we need to write this equation as ax squared plus bx plus c. So first of all, let's expand the bracket. To expand that bracket, we'll first write this thing as 3x minus 1 times 3x minus 1, because we know that this is a square, and we can write this as two brackets, and that equals 3 minus x squared. Let's expand that bracket using FOIL method. So 3 times 3 is 9, x times x is x squared. So then we multiply 3x with minus 1, so that's minus 3x. Then we multiply minus 1 with 3x, so that's minus 3x. And minus 1 times minus 1 is plus 1. And on the other side of the equation, we have 3 minus x squared. Let's keep that unchanged. We can now simplify this. So we get 9x squared minus 3x is minus 6x plus 1 equals 3 minus x squared. Let's bring everything to the left hand side of the equation. So 9x squared, we're going to bring this negative x squared to the left hand side of the equation. So we get 9x squared plus x squared. We have minus 6x plus 1. And let's bring this 3 to the left hand side as well. So that's going to be minus 3 equals 0. So 9x squared plus x squared is 10x squared, and we have minus 6x plus 1 minus 3 is minus 2, and that equals 0. We're going to use the quadratic formula again. So I've brought out the quadratic formula here, but before we use the quadratic formula, we need the values a, b, and c. And we know that this equation is of the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So the value of a is 10 because that's in front of the x squared. The value of b is minus 6, and the value of c is minus 2. So a equals 10, b equals minus 6, and c equals minus 2. We can use that in our formula now. So we can write it as x equals minus b. So minus b, which is minus of minus 6, minus of minus 6, because the formula has a minus and the value is a minus 6. So that's why we have a double negative. And then we have plus or minus square root of b squared, which is minus 6 squared minus 4 times a. The value of a is 10, and the value of c is minus 2. So times minus 2, and that divided by 2 times a, which is 2 times 10. Now x equals minus minus 6 is plus 6 or positive 6, and that's plus or minus square root of b squared, which is minus 6 squared, that's 36, and minus 4 times 10 times minus 2 is plus 80, divided by 2 times 10, which is just 20. And now that equals x equals 6 plus or minus square root of 116 divided by 20. From there, we get two answers. One of them is x equals 6 plus square root of 116 over 20. The other one is x equals 6 minus square root of 116 over 20. So again, what we have done is, because this was plus and minus, we have broken that into two answers. One of them is 6 plus 106 square root of 116, and the other one is 6 minus square root of 116. Now if you put those values in your calculator, what we get is um, 0. 0.839 for the first one, and for this we get x equals minus 0.239.